The invisible ceiling, why Black women entrepreneurs succeed despite the system, not because of it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to begin by acknowledging the extraordinary work of April Charles, whose groundbreaking research has fundamentally transformed how we understand Black women's entrepreneurship in America. April isn't just a researcher, she's a truth teller whose unflinching commitment to looking beyond headlines has exposed the gap between perception and reality in our economic landscape. Her methodical dismantling of comfortable narratives has forced investors, policymakers, and business leaders to confront uncomfortable truths about who truly has access to the American dream. In a world that often celebrates symbolic victories over substantive change, April's work stands as a monument to intellectual courage and a catalyst for genuine transformation. I had the privilege of sitting down with April recently, and what she shared shook me to my core. It's going to challenge everything you think you know about progress, opportunity, and the entrepreneurial landscape in America today. Here's a statistic that's been celebrated widely. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the United States. You've probably seen the headlines: Black women leading business creation, historic growth in minority entrepreneurship. It sounds impressive, doesn't it? A clear sign that barriers are falling and opportunities expanding. But April Charles revealed something profoundly disturbing beneath this celebratory narrative. Only 15% of Black women entrepreneurs report making a profit. Let that sink in for a moment. Despite accounting for 28% of all Black entrepreneurs, only a small fraction achieve financial sustainability. The numbers are growing, yes, but the outcomes tell a different story. This isn't progress. This is what happens when we mistake participation for equity. This is what I call the illusion of progress. When surface level metrics suggest advancement, while deeper measures reveal persistent inequality. It's like being invited to the party, but not being allowed to dance. It's like being given a seat at the table, but no food on your plate. It's like being told you can compete in the race while others get a head start, better shoes, and a smoother track. The question we should be asking isn't just how many Black women are starting businesses, but rather how many are thriving once they do. During my conversation with April, three critical insights emerged that help explain this contradiction. First, the rapid increase in Black women's entrepreneurship often masks deeper challenges with profitability and sustainability. Starting a business is one thing, accessing the resources needed to grow and sustain it is entirely another. The celebration of increased participation without examining outcomes creates a dangerous narrative that suggests the playing field has been leveled when it absolutely has not. Second, systemic barriers, particularly limited access to capital and persistent disparities in employment opportunities, continue to disproportionately affect Black women professionals and entrepreneurs. Even as they lead new business creation at record rates, the playing field remains dramatically uneven. The median funding raised by Black women founders between 2009 and 2020 was just $125,000. Compare that to the $2.5 million raised by the average white male founder. This isn't just a gap, it's a chasm of injustice. Third, community support networks, targeted funding initiatives, and policy changes are absolutely critical for bridging these gaps. As April emphasized repeatedly, empowering each other through mentorships and collective advocacy can make a tangible difference for future generations. Let me share some real stories that illustrate these points. Stories of extraordinary women who succeeded not because the system worked for them, but despite how dramatically it failed them. Consider Walker's Legacy, an organization founded by Natalie Madeira Caulfield. This remarkable initiative focuses specifically on empowering multicultural women entrepreneurs across the United States. Natalie created Walker's Legacy after recognizing a significant gap between available entrepreneurial resources and what was actually accessible for multicultural women seeking support beyond generic offerings. The challenges were clear and painful. Black women founders faced significant obstacles accessing startup capital from traditional banks due to bias and lack of collateral. They were being denied loans at higher rates, offered worse terms, and subjected to greater scrutiny than their white counterparts. The financial system, the very lifeblood of entrepreneurship, was systematically failing them. Walker's Legacy responded with tailored training programs, networking events, mentorship opportunities, and advocacy for greater representation in investment circles. The results were transformative. Participants reported increased confidence pitching their ideas, and several secured seed funding through connections made via Walker's Legacy programs. The organization has expanded nationally with chapters supporting thousands of aspiring founders annually. This is what meaningful support looks like. Not just cheerleading from the sidelines, but targeted resources that address specific barriers. Not just celebrating entrepreneurship in the abstract, but creating concrete pathways to success. Or take the Honeypot Company, founded by B. Dixon in 2014. This company produced plant based feminine care products targeting underserved consumers. B's journey illustrates perfectly the funding biases that April Charles highlighted in our conversation. B struggled initially with securing venture capital. Why? Because mainstream investors were skeptical about her market focused Black female consumers. They couldn't see the potential in serving a community that had been systematically overlooked by legacy brands. They dismissed her vision as niche, as though serving anyone other than the dominant demographic was somehow a limitation rather than an opportunity. So, what did B do? She leveraged crowdfunding platforms like Indiegogo alongside grassroots marketing within her community before landing major retail contracts with Target. The Honey Pot became one of the first natural feminine hygiene brands owned by a Black woman sold nationwide. Sales soared after national exposure during Target commercials that highlighted the founder's story. What's particularly fascinating about B's story is that she created her product line out of personal necessity, but quickly realized there was broader market demand among other marginalized groups ignored by legacy brands. The company eventually secured multi-million dollar investments after its retail breakthrough and built brand loyalty among diverse customers seeking inclusive options. The Honeypot Company paved the way for more inclusive retail partnerships while challenging assumptions about so called niche markets. This is innovation born of necessity, the kind that occurs when entrepreneurs solve problems that established companies don't even recognize exist. And then there's Blavity Inc., co founded by Morgan DeBaun in 2014. Now one of America's leading digital media companies serving young African American audiences. Morgan faced both skepticism from advertisers unfamiliar with culturally relevant content strategies and difficulty attracting early stage investment because traditional venture capitalists undervalued niche media ventures led by young Black founders. Her solution? She bootstrapped initial operations using personal savings before building strategic partnerships with brands aligned around diversity goals. The outcome was remarkable. Blavity reached millions monthly across multiple verticals: news, lifestyle, events, eventually raising over $11 million dollars from forward thinking investors who recognized untapped potential. Morgan launched Blavity out of frustration at seeing stories relevant to herself overlooked or misrepresented on mainstream platforms, a common experience shared by many Black millennials online. The company expanded into conferences like Afrotech and acquired other digital assets serving underrepresented creators and founders. Today, Blavity has amplified countless voices across tech, media, and business sectors, demonstrating scalable models for culturally specific entrepreneurship. These stories reveal something profound about innovation and resilience. They show us that some of the most groundbreaking business models emerge not from privilege, but from necessity, from entrepreneurs who see gaps in the market because those gaps directly affect their lives. But they also reveal something troubling: the extraordinary effort required to overcome systemic barriers. Each of these success stories required exceptional persistence, creativity, and community support to overcome obstacles that simply shouldn't exist in a truly equitable economy. As April Charles emphasized in our interview, we need to be honest about both the progress and the persistent challenges. Yes, more Black women are starting businesses than ever before, but they're doing so with less capital, less institutional support, and against greater odds than their counterparts. When we celebrate increasing entrepreneurship without addressing these fundamental inequities, we risk creating what April calls a bootstrapping mandate: the expectation that Black women should somehow build successful businesses with dramatically fewer resources than their counterparts. We essentially normalize inequality by applauding those who overcome it rather than dismantling the barriers themselves. So, what can we do about this? April's research points to several critical pathways forward. First, we need targeted capital investment. This means intentional funding initiatives specifically designed to support Black women entrepreneurs, not just in starting businesses, but in scaling them to profitability. It means rethinking risk assessment models that systematically undervalue businesses serving communities of color. Second, we need robust mentorship and network building opportunities. The entrepreneurs I mentioned earlier all emphasize the importance of community support in navigating challenges. Organizations like Walker's Legacy demonstrate the power of creating spaces where Black women entrepreneurs can share knowledge, resources, and opportunities. Third, we need policy changes that address structural barriers. This includes everything from reforming lending practices to creating more equitable tax incentives for investments in underserved communities. But perhaps most importantly, we need to change the narrative. We need to stop celebrating mere participation as though it were equivalent to equal opportunity. We need metrics that measure not just how many businesses are started, but how many thrive. We need to hold institutions accountable not just for diversity in their portfolios, but for equity in their outcomes. As I stand here today, I'm asking you to do more than just applaud these insights. I'm challenging you to act on them. This isn't just about business, it's about justice. It's about whether we truly believe in the promise of equal opportunity or are content with the performance of progress. For investors in this room, will you commit to examining your portfolio through the lens of equity, not just diversity? Will you question risk assessment models that systematically undervalue Black women led businesses? For policymakers, will you create accountability measures that track not just business creation, but business sustainability among marginalized entrepreneurs? For allies and advocates, will you amplify these voices and support these businesses, not just with your words, but with your dollars and your influence? The time for polite conversations about incremental change is over. We need bold, disruptive action that addresses the root causes of these disparities. We need to build systems that work for everyone, not just those who have historically held power. In the powerful words that April shared with me from Audre Lorde, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. We cannot fix these systemic problems using the same thinking that created them. We need new tools, new metrics, and new ways of understanding success. The question isn't whether Black women entrepreneurs can succeed. They've proven time and again that they can overcome almost any obstacle. The question is, why should they have to? In a truly just society, talent and determination would be enough. The fact that they aren't tells us not about the deficiencies of these entrepreneurs, but about the deficiencies in our systems. I challenge each of you today to leave this room and take one concrete action, whether it's changing your investment criteria, supporting a Black woman owned business, advocating for policy change, or simply questioning narratives that celebrate participation without examining outcomes. The illusion of progress is comfortable. Real progress is not. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths and take uncomfortable actions. But on the other side of that discomfort lies a world where entrepreneurship truly becomes a pathway to prosperity for everyone, not just those who were born into privilege. Thank you